and the two things, you know, obviously in action-oriented prose, like redemption stories or revenge stories. I feel like revenge stories have been so done to death.
Yeah.
And that there's something so ultimately kind of empty about the idea of brutal revenge that...
Very much so. I think, yeah, it's almost, it's porny in its like revenge porn kind of, where you're like, no, you can have those inside your head voices that say, I want to use my car like a bully and bully some person who just made bad choices on the road. Shit happens.
Exactly.
And I did it yesterday. I had road rage and I was an idiot. And then I was like, hey, you're being an idiot. So I stopped being an idiot before anyone
And
was
I think that's where I think redemption comes in.
Yeah.
I think the idea that you can have enough self-awareness to stop the bad behavior.
To stop the revenge.
To recognize the bad behavior and actually take an action to change it. That's, you know, in a very small way, that's the idea of like redemption. I think that's where, you know, not giving into those impulses and not being the monster that you don't want to be, you know, and feeling like I'm okay with being the angry monster that like flips off an old lady or, you know.
Chases some poor bastard. And I used to do a joke about how I chased an old woman. It was one of the last times I chased anyone. And the joke was, of course, is that when you chase an old person, you catch them. And then I got out of my car. Like, we both stopped, and I get out of my car, and I'm yelling at her. And she, as a sane person, locked her car. And all she said to me was, get some help. And I was like, I'm going to go do that. And I went away. I fucked off and got some help. And I
this time my enemy was right.
Yes, yes. And so, I mean, and I think to some extent those redemption stories are the next step in sort of the coming of age stories.
Right.
You know, I mean, everyone loves a coming of age story, you know, like an Earthsea trilogy or The Chosen. I don't know why those two are coming to mind, but then when you're an adult, you've come of age, you should have your act together.
Right.
But for some reason you're still a bad person.
Or you've made massive mistakes and errors along the way that you
must redeem yourself. And that journey I think every adult should be able to relate to that to some extent.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And I also think that villainous characters who aren't like the interest in examining a villainous character is that they're just more complicated. You know, I mean, a hero, about as complicated you can make a hero is he's brooding. You know,
right?
And it's like, I mean, if you look at Batman, it's kind of pathetic to be like pushing 40 and you're still whining and moaning about your parents' death. I mean, it's a tragedy.
Yes.
But most people, rational people, that woman in the car, get some help.
Get some help.
Bruce, get some help.
Right. You have a disposable income. And he uses all of his money to make weapons and toys instead of...
And to terrorize and bully his town.
And terrorize and bully the bad guys who are in his town. And he's also a philanthropist. Nobody's saying Bruce Wayne is not a philanthropist. But he could take the millions that he also spends to create toys and fun. And even help even more. Yeah. You know? He can adopt more than one kid at a time, is what I'm saying.
and maybe not train them to fight in the street in the middle of the night.
As a 14-year-old. That'd be great. That'd be perfect, Bruce.